Good morning, YouTube. This is my first YouTube video, but I figured I would make one because I have found count them, two Growstone videos when using orchids. So, I'm going to share my experiences for anyone like me that is looking for more information on how Growstone works with orchids, specifically people who are looking for an inorganic media, since Ceramis is not readily available here in the US. And I just don't see breaking up my clay pots with all those jagged edges. I think it's going to hurt my orchids' roots more than do good. So these are my older orchids, and Cattleya and a Oncidium cherry baby. And they are currently in the traditional bark medium because they are about to spike for the Cattleya and the cherry babies in bloom, so I decided not to change them. It is really hot here, and if anyone knows about orchids, if you make any changes, you could set them back. She could decide not to bloom and didn't want to risk that. This one specifically had multiple spikes. She's almost done now, so as soon as she's done, I will probably change her to the Growstone media. But let's keep going. So I decided to try Growstone with some Cattleyas. These are all Cattleya seedlings. I have had them in the Growstone media for about 2 months now, and there are some pros and some cons. As you can see, they are babies, so I have decided to keep them in some filtered sunlight. It is morning here. I am in Florida, which is extremely hot and extremely humid, and we are in our rainy season, so it rains every single day, torrential downpour. So I needed to find something that would dry very quickly because Cattleyas do not like to be wet. They will absolutely rot, and Growstone seems to be the best option for them. So for my Cattleyas, as you can see, they are in various stages of growth. Some are much smaller than others, and if you notice, I had to put some sphagnum moss on some just because those were a little bit smaller than all of the rest. Now, since putting them in Growstone, I have noticed quite a lot of growth. These particular Cattleyas were actually ordered from Carmela's Orchids, and they came in beautiful. I did have to wait for my Growstone a little bit, so they did sit in their original seedling pots, which was extremely moist sphagnum moss. It's pretty typical for seedlings. And unfortunately, while I was waiting with them, I did get quite a bit of root rot. No matter what I tried, they just rotted, and I didn't want to touch them and set them back even further. Now, since repotting them in the Growstone, just kind of start with this one right here. You can see there is quite a bit of root growth. You can see some bad roots in there. Again, I don't want to really mess with these roots because they are in fact babies, and I want to let them utilize whatever they have. Now, these orchids were removed from their original pots. Sphagnum moss was completely removed. They were sprayed very, very thoroughly with hydrogen peroxide 3%. And let completely dry in front of a fan. And as you can see, this one still has some damage from all of the moisture, but she is in fact doing very well. There are so many new little roots, but as you can see, there are a lot of really bad roots. Again, just my personal decision not to go ahead and chop these off because I didn't want to affect them even worse than they were already. And again, 2 months in this Growstone media, and I have quite a lot of roots. So again, just kind of going to go show you each and every one. New leaves, again, discoloration just because it was not in a great situation, but as you can see, new growth. This one specifically decided to take off. These two Cattleya orchids, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They just really love the Growstone. They have had in 2 months the most growth that I've seen a Cattleya put out. This is a brand new growth. It was literally a nub, and that is 2 months of growth. As you can see, it's nearly 2 inches. And again, filtered sun. You can see there it's a BLC Murray Spencer, Armsroyd Dark Star, cross with BLC Purple Red Ruby 6. She is doing very, very well. Here is another one that is doing, again, very, very well. Pseudobulbs did shrivel a bit because it was just rotting roots, but as you can see, big fat roots down there, brand new. And this is the BLC Birkin Wonder Lakeland, crossed with Carl Hausman Carl. So again, very, very, very good growth on all of these. Now, there were some that were just not as fortunate, and of course these were the guys that were just a little bit smaller. So with these particular ones, when I put them in the Growstone, Growstone does retain quite a bit of moisture, which is great for root growth, but unfortunately, I'm just gonna let that pass by. And so unfortunately the top does get quite dry because it is so hot here. So I decided to use sphagnum moss. Not my ideal, but I could not get my hands on Synthink, and I already had it, so I decided not to cut up any microfiber, which I've seen other people use, and I would love to do that. But for me specifically, just wanted to kind of see what would happen, to be honest with you. I will probably, once this orchid is a little bit bigger, I will probably be removing all of that moss and reusing the Growstone, because you can absolutely reuse it. You just need to clean it thoroughly and bake it to sterilize it, and then you can let it cool and reuse it again. So I will probably repot this guy once he's got quite a bit of roots, and go to complete inorganic with some microfiber. Again, this guy as well, this poor little guy had no roots, like nothing. And as you can see, there are some really nice little root tips that are now growing. Kind of worried about this one because it is just not, you can see this rotted out. This one was just in the worst condition. And then this one also in the worst possible condition. I actually left this one without any media for quite a long time. Now, because this one was in such bad condition, even though, I mean, you can see leaves they're starting to look better, but they were quite dehydrated. They were really floppy. Since this is kind of an experiment for me, I decided to go ahead and just use the traditional bark media. Again, I just didn't want to risk losing it. This is a BLC Huntington Island, Hawaii, crossed with BLC Jeremy Island, Carmela. And I just didn't want to risk losing it. It is an experiment, but these are living creatures, and I'm putting them through enough. So this one will stay in this media until, I mean, it's got root tips coming in, until I see just a few more, and then it will also go to the Growstone, just because all the rest of them seem to be doing quite well. On a side note, I do have a Vanda baby. This is a Dr. Annex Sungsamaran Spotted Cream. It is a baby Vanda. I decided to just throw some Growstone in there to keep it a little bit more moist. And if you can look down there, I do have a little bit of sphagnum moss all the way in the bottom, but for the most part, its roots are completely exposed, just to keep it a little bit more stable, and I threw it in there. I am not going to be potting my Vanda in any kind of Growstone media. I like the exposed roots. I don't want to risk it. So, yep, this is my my YouTube take on Growstone. Hope everyone likes it. Hope you find it informative. Again, these guys have been sitting in Growstone for about 2 months. I will be checking back in at the 4-month mark, 6-month mark, and then probably 9 and then 12 months, and see how everything goes. Don't mind that guy. That was a gifted orchid, and they asked me to save him. I don't think there's any hope for it. It has root rot, but we can possibly get a basil keiki, so there it will sit for until the roots die, I guess. We'll just see. And so yeah, hello YouTube. and nice to meet you all.